Hola amigos, una vez más les saluda contra satanismo. Bueno, en esta ocasión les vengo a informar sobre lo importante que es para la élite occidental desarmar a sus ciudadanos, previa a la hambruna que se viene para este lado del mundo, una hambruna creada por los confinamientos, por las sanciones a Rusia, y por la destrucción de alimentos por parte de China, y USA. Para evitar revueltas sociales difíciles de controlar es importante avanzar en el desarme de la población tanto en el corto plazo por la hambruna que viene a Occidente, como por la instauración del gobierno mundial tecnocrático. Necesitan tener a todos los civiles desarmados, para que los estados al tener el monopolio de la fuerza puedan aplastar cualquier posibilidad de rebelión de la gente a este sistema que se está creando, que es de esclavitud perfecta. A continuación les dejo con la explicación de Catherine Austin Fitz sobre el modelo tecnocrático que actual se está instaurando en todo el mundo.
And we get to the diagrams here.
Okay. So if you look at what's going on, we have the tech people building the clouds and the telecommunications. We have the military doing space and Operation Warp Speed. Media putting out the propaganda. And then we have the central bankers engineering to the crypto, the central bank crypto systems. So you have these different pillars, and it's very important when you look at what's going on day to day, particularly in the media, they're trying to keep them separate so that you can't see how they're going to come together in an integrated system, which is basically integrated into your body and your mind.
For what purpose?
To institute the slavery system. So in other words, if I am going to do everything through a smart grid, and I need to run the smart grid into your neighborhood, and then I need to run the smart grid into your body, the question is, how am I going to build it out in your neighborhood and build it out in your body without you seeing the trap? Right? So that's why you try and keep these different lines separate. So if you listen to the central bankers, they try as hard as they can to stay away from these conversations. So it was interesting, I was watching an IMF presentation on cross-border payments, and the Federal Reserve Chairman, the head of the IMF mentioned the digital global ID system, and you would have, the Federal Reserve Chairman almost blanched, and you could energetically feel him moving like a galaxy away. It's like, no, because, you know, there are 325 million Americans, and there are more than 325 million guns. And he doesn't want everybody to see this until the trap is thrown. It's too late.
Lo que la élite quiere no es dinero, ni nada material en específico, sino esclavitud y control total para todo el resto de la humanidad, y que ellos sean nuestros señores feudales, como era en la Edad Media, con los empresarios corporativistas y los políticos concentrando toda la riqueza. Capitalismo para ellos el 1%, y comunismo/socialismo, hambre y esclavitud para el 99% restante. En lo personal creo que sí les es posible durante esta cuarta revolución industrial que vivimos leer los pensamientos de las personas, y saber absolutamente todo de ellas. Esta élite inescrupulosa y demoníaca lo hará. Hasta quién sabe si hasta pudiesen ser capaces de imponer pensamientos a la gente, ya que ellos son unos auténticos psicópatas satánicos.
Corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. This is Aaron Russo, a filmmaker and former politician. To his left is Nicholas Rockefeller of the infamous Rockefeller banking and business dynasty. After maintaining a close friendship with Nicholas Rockefeller, Aaron eventually ended the relationship, appalled by what he had learned about the Rockefellers and their ambitions.
I got a call one day from an attorney woman I knew, and she said, would you like to meet one of the Rockefellers? I said, sure, I'd love to. And we became friends, and he began to divulge a lot of things to me. So he said to me one night, he said that there's going to be an event there, and out of that event, you're going to see, we're going to go into Afghanistan, so we can run pipelines from the Caspian Sea. We're going to go into Iraq to take the oil and establish a base in the Middle East, and we're going to go into Venezuela and try and get rid of Chavez. And the first two they've accomplished. Chavez they didn't accomplish. And said you're going to see guys going into caves looking for looking for people that they're never going to find. You know, he was laughing about the fact that you have this war on terror. There's no real enemy. He's talking about how by having this war on terror, you can never win it because it's an eternal war. And so you can always keep taking people's liberties away. And I said, how are you going to convince people that this war is real? He says, but the media can convince everybody it's real. I mean, you know, it's just that you keep talking about things. You keep saying it over and over and over again, and eventually people believe it. You know, you created the Federal Reserve in 1913 through lies. You create 9/11, which is another lie. Through 9/11, you're fighting a war on terror, and now all of a sudden you go into Iraq, which was another lie, and now they're going to do Iran. You know, and it's all one thing leading to another, leading to another, leading to another. Now, I would say, what are you doing this for? What's the point of this thing? You have all the money in the world you ever want. You have all the power. I said, you know, you're hurting people. It's not a good thing. And he would say, what do you care about the people for? Take care of yourself and you take care of your family. And then I said to him, what are the ultimate goals here? He said, the ultimate goal is to get everybody in this world chipped with the RFID chip and have all money be on those chips and everything on those chips. And if anybody wants to protest what we do or violate what we want, we just turn off their chip.
That's right, microchipped. In 2005, Congress, under the pretense of immigration control and the so-called war on terrorism, passed the Real ID Act, under which it is projected by May 2008, you will be required to carry around a federal identification card, which includes on it a scannable barcode with your personal information. However, this barcode is only an intermediary step before the card is equipped with a VeriChip RFID tracking module, which will use radio frequencies to track your every move on the planet. If this sounds foreign to you, please note that the RFID tracking chip is already in all new American passports. And the final step is the implanted chip, which many people have already been manipulated into accepting under different pretenses.
We have a Florida family who are really pioneers in a brave new world. They have volunteered to be the first ever to have microchip identification devices implanted into their body.
After 9/11, I was really concerned with the security of my family.
I wouldn't mind having something planted permanently in my arm that would identify me.
In the end, everybody will be locked into a monitored control grid where every single action you perform is documented. And if you get out of line, they can just turn off your chip, for at that point in time, every single aspect of society will revolve around interactions with the chips. This is the picture that is painted for the future if you open your eyes to see it. A centralized one-world economy where everyone's moves and everyone's transactions are tracked and monitored, all rights removed. The most incredible aspect of all. These totalitarian elements will not be forced upon the people. The people will demand them. For the social manipulation of society through the generation of fear and division has completely detached humans from their sense of power and reality.
En palabras de Benjamin Franklin, cuando todas las armas sean propiedad del gobierno y de los bandidos, estos decidirán de quién será el resto de las propiedades.
Como sabrán, uno de los jóvenes líderes del UEF es Justin Trudeau, alias Fidelito, que ha prohibido la compra de armas al pacífico pueblo canadiense, así como lo hizo hace unos meses confiscando las cuentas a los no chuteados.
En lo personal creo que sí les es posible durante esta cuarta revolución industrial que vivimos leer los pensamientos de las personas, y saber absolutamente todo de ellas. Esta élite inescrupulosa y demoníaca lo hará. Hasta quién sabe si hasta pudiesen ser capaces de imponer pensamientos a la gente, ya que ellos son unos auténticos psicópatas satánicos.
A continuación el video de Trudeau.
And now, as we see gun violence continue to rise, it is our duty to keep taking action. Last summer, during the campaign, some politicians said they would make assault-style weapons legal again. Not only did we stand up to them, but we promised to go even further to protect our communities. We proposed to invest to help provinces and territories put restrictions on handguns within their jurisdictions. However, In our discussions with law enforcement, advocates, and experts, it became apparent that we needed a different solution. So we decided to take a new route, something that would tackle this issue at a national level. And so today, we're moving forward. We're introducing legislation to implement a national freeze on handgun ownership. What this means is that it will no longer be possible to buy, sell, transfer, or import handguns anywhere in Canada. In other words, we're capping the market for handguns.
Pero Trudeau no es el único, sino que también el presidente de Chile, Gabriel Boric, quiere avanzar en la prohibición total de armas a civiles, como dijo el miércoles pasado en la cuenta pública 2022 de aquel país.
Todos quienes nos están escuchando, que la violencia armada no será tolerada en nuestro país. Y por eso, nuestro programa Menos Armas, Más Seguridad propone la limitación radical de su acceso legal. Y desde ya le solicito a este honorable Congreso todo el apoyo para aprobar una ley que nos permita avanzar hacia la prohibición total de tenencia de armas. Prohibición total de la tenencia de armas. Hemos visto lo que pasa en otros países. Yo sé que hay algunos que nos aplauden cuando decimos esto. Hemos visto lo que pasa en otros países. No permitamos que nos pase en Chile. No permitamos que nos pase en Chile.
Así como Trudeau tiene medio gabinete de jóvenes líderes del Foro Económico Mundial, tanto Giorgio Jackson como Iskia Siches tienen lazos verificables con esta organización globalista. Desarmar a los civiles es buena idea cuando se tienen buenos políticos y líderes, pero eso no siempre está garantizado. Un ejemplo de eso es Venezuela, o la dictadura mundial de los tecnócratas globalistas de la Agenda 2030. Como comentó anteriormente Catherine Austin Fitz, es necesario que USA y el resto de los países desarme los civiles antes de que la gente se dé cuenta del ID digital, las divisas digitales y demás, son para mermar su libertad. Por eso los tiroteos en USA que han puesto sobre el tapete la tenencia de armas, y así los demócratas cargarse la segunda enmienda, como dice Finanzas Times.
Also be clear, the future is not just happening. The future is built by us, by a powerful community as you here in this room. We have the means to improve the states of the world, but two conditions are necessary. The first one is that we act all as stakeholders of larger communities, that we serve not our only self-interests, but we serve the community. That's what we call stakeholder responsibility. And second, that we collaborate. And this is the reason why you find many opportunities here during the meeting to engage into very action and impact-oriented initiatives to make progress related to specific issues on the global agenda.
Así como estuvo Klaus Schwab dando inicio en la reunión del Foro Económico Mundial del 2022, también estuvo George Soros, quien dijo que la humanidad no sobreviviría a una tercera guerra mundial y que también le preocupaba el cambio climático. Tanto así a las élites les preocupa el cambio climático que están dispuestos a ponerle a las personas una huella de carbono, como menciona J. Michael Evans, presidente del grupo Alibaba, para así limitar la cantidad de compras y contaminación que una persona puede emitir. A continuación el video.
Some of the craziest plans you'll ever hear of, like tracking your carbon footprint.
We're developing, through technology, an ability for consumers to measure their own carbon footprint. What does that mean? That's where are they traveling? How are they traveling? What are they eating? What are they consuming on the platform? So, individual carbon footprint tracker.
Believe it when I tell you, these people don't care about any of us. They're just a bunch of globalists hanging out and coming up with too many bad ideas. Rand Paul, Kentucky senator, and he joins me now. Should the American people be scared when the richest people in the entire world get together at a swanky conference and hatch these crazy ideas about how to make our lives better?
On a private jet, they're spending 5 times as much of a carbon footprint. So if they really cared about that, they could ride on commercial airlines, but they aren't. They're elitist. But the other real danger here that's even more danger than all their phony caring about carbon footprint, the real danger is this. Look how bad your government is in a country where you get to vote for these people. This would be a government, a world government, where you don't get to vote on anybody. This is everybody's worst nightmare. The bureaucracy that we have trouble in our United States because we don't get to vote on them, we vote indirectly. Can you imagine the one world bureaucracy of all these elitists and their private jets that would rule our country and we wouldn't get to vote? So I'm dead set against this. And they used to call people who talked about one world government, they used to say, oh, it's a conspiracy. And we would always say, no, it's in their mission statement. They say it at every meeting. That's what they're for. But lack of sovereignty means lack of freedom, and it means lack of responsiveness, and it's completely antithetical to everything our country stands for.
Yeah, and I don't want to put down Bill Gates and these guys. You know, they do a lot for charity. But when you hear them kind of just dismiss inflation, or you're going to have to go through some pain in order to kind of go with my idea. You know, the American people hear that and they think, come on, man, you're not serious, are you?
Además, la élite planea etiquetar todo el contenido de Internet, así como hoy lo hacen los fact-checkers actualmente, pero en el futuro planea realizar esta tarea con inteligencia artificial y este Ministerio de la Verdad C2PA formado por las Big Tech. Las ciudades planean ser una auténtica prisión digital. El diablo necesita crear la prisión digital perfecta y así tal vez en 7 años o un poco más, cuando el reloj del cambio climático llegue a cero, los extraterrestres, demonios, se rebelen a la humanidad haciendo prodigios y grandes maravillas para embobar a los líderes mundiales y las masas, y así imponer la ley dominical, como explica Roger Mouneau en el siguiente video.
The lane, you see.
Now, what is a transmedium?
It's a channeler today.
What is known today as a channeler?
Channeler, yeah. Okay. Shirley MacLaine's experience of getting involved with spiritism and with the supposed inhabitants of far distant planets in the galaxies, I taped the whole thing. It's 3 hours.
And you were hearing the fulfillment of what this high priest had said 45 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. So he went on explaining about the fact that the spirits will show themselves willing to give valuable guidance that will not only help people avoid the destruction of the planet, but it would cause it to enter into a higher state of existence. For instance, he said the spirits will promise, and this is a big word, promise, that if their recommendations are followed carefully, they will usher in a glorious new age of peace and prosperity, and there'll be there'll be no more wars, you see. There'll be no more famines. There'll be no more people getting unhappy with one another. Neighbors will love neighbor, and social unrest will not take place no more. There'll be perfect happiness for 1,000 years. That's what the Spirit is going to promise.
Almost like the Garden of Eden created all over again.
And now we find that a lot of preachers are preaching the great age of glorious new age of victory. Victory over wars, victory over social unrest, victory over famines, and victory over all kinds of...
and he used the words new age to describe what was coming.
It would be a glorious new age, yeah. And this is exactly what the movement is all about today. And he went on and said, as I said earlier, that as life on this planet becomes more and more difficult, and calamities will strike the planet more and more frequently, the spirits at that time are going to put all their effort to impress religious leaders, to bring before the masses of the earth the sacredness of Sunday. See? They will teach Sunday sacredness. And with the religious leaders, looking forward to 1,000 years of perfect peace on earth, they will put all their effort into it. Then laws will be passed by governments. One person asked, what's going to happen about people that don't believe in the Spirit's recommendation? The priest says, that's no problem at all. Laws will be passed by governments that will force people to go along with it, regardless of whether they believe in it or not. And he says the law enforcement officers will explain to people, make it clear that such a law is necessary to assure the well-being of all people. He says the laws will be passed with no effort at all. And then he went on and he said about the fact that the venerability of the sun, which in ages past was such an irritant to the Creator. All these great nations and other nations, the smaller ones, were all involved in sun worship. And in those centuries, the Creator found that teaching of worship of the sun to be a terrible irritant. And he said, it is going again to take place, but not in worshiping the sun, in remembering Sunday to keep it holy. He made a statement I would never forget. He says, by the observance of the day upon which the master, Satan, has placed the unction of his authority and power, he receives homage, regardless of whom people claim to worship. Isn't that something? So, can you understand now why I had 28 Bible studies in 1 week and started to go to church on Sabbath? And I never missed since until I became sick.
The issue of a day of worship came up in that meeting. Was Sunday the only day mentioned?
Well, you see, the priest mentioned, yes, about the fact Satan has chosen Sunday as his day. The Creator has chosen the 7th day of the week. Lucifer has chosen to call his day the first day of the week, Sunday. See? And regardless of what people claim to worship, worshiping God, the Creator, by observing that day, that particular day, they are bringing homage and respect.
Now, at that time in your life, you were 20 years old or so. Had you ever heard of a Seventh-day Adventist?
Never in my life.
In that meeting...
They didn't talk about Seventh-day Adventist. They talked strictly about Adventist.
Well, they just talked... But they did... The word Adventist was mentioned.
The priest was telling us that necromancy, as I mentioned earlier, is the belief that the dead have entered into a higher state of existence, etc. And he says, for centuries, friendly demon spirits have worked diligently to establish and uphold in the religious convictions of all people the belief that man has an immortal soul. See? Then he boasted about the fact that the master was so smart and that he had deceived the whole world, even in this age of great scientific knowledge and understanding. Then one person put his hand up, and that priest says, yes, we want to say something? He says, what about the Adventists? You can't count them deceived regarding the state of the dead. And I got a question. What about, how come that they can't be brought under the great deception? The priest said, you're right. I apologize, says here, I made a mistake. When I said that all the millions of people living on the face of this planet, everybody, you know, was honoring the great master. I forgot the Adventists. They're so few in number, when you figure the billions and all people, I didn't even think of mentioning them. So I'm sorry. Then he says, secondly, the reason why they can't be brought under the great deception, let me explain about it. Now he said, my next statement is going to upset some of you. But what I'm telling you is the honest truth. It is factual. It's reality. The fact that the Adventists observe the biblical Sabbath of creation and reverence the Creator on that day, it makes it impossible for the spirits to deceive them. They are giving very special help and great spiritual in sight. And he said, under these conditions, they are not ordinary people. And that stayed with me, man, just like this. And when I heard the word Adventist, when several told me later on, which we're going to cover.
Recuerden amigos, actualmente estamos en Mateo 24, 7, 8, luego de la revelación extraterrestre estaremos muy cerca de Mateo 24, 9 en adelante y de iniciar los días de persecución. Pero hoy en día estamos medio de pandemias, guerras, rumores de guerras, y una hambruna mundial que, como ya ha dicho el presidente Alberto Fernández y otros líderes mundiales, será la más grande de la historia. Viene un gran colapso de la economía en los próximos años por la crisis de deuda global. Pero en lo personal creo que Rusia, China, India y tal vez Brasil mantengan un cierto orden multipolar, que se resista en matices el nuevo orden mundial, pero todo eso terminará con la revelación de los extraterrestres o el simular una inminente invasión extraterrestre, como ya decía o comentaba el ex actor y presidente de los Estados Unidos Ronald Reagan en un discurso que dio ante la ONU en 1987. A continuación el video.
Perhaps we need some outside universal threat. I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world. And yet I ask you, is not an alien force already among us? What could be more alien to the universal aspirations of our peoples than war and the threat?
Amigos míos, debemos estar muy atentos, ya que Satanás hará grandes milagros. Es probable que los extraterrestres / demonios usen tecnología de hologramas o algo así, para engañarnos y aparentar la falsa venida de nuestro Señor Jesucristo, que no pisará la tierra, y este o estos falsos cristos que caminarán entre nosotros no son más que demonios, que buscarán torcer la palabra de Dios. Si eres cristiano, da igual si eres católico, evangélico, protestante o de otra denominación, espero que Dios pueda obrar en ti para que abras tu mente a la posibilidad de que el propósito final de Satanás sea instaurar la ley dominical, busques a Dios hoy y a nuestro Señor Jesucristo, y así no seas engañado ni tú, ni tus seres queridos. Por eso es importante tratar de salir de las ciudades al campo, para no depender del gobierno de la bestia. Esto es todo amigos. Si gustas puedes dejar tu aporte por Patreon en la descripción de este video está el link. Que Dios les bendiga, hasta la próxima.